It's so nice to see everyone.
Neanche d'inverno. Cavolo.
Just arrived from the US.
Hello.
Oh,
Dici,
the
Carla?
magic of Amazon. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, right now. Perfect.
Okay. I had my microphone was mute. Sorry. I was talking as usual. And please, can you mute your microphone in order not to have noise? And so I think we can start. People are still arriving and still coming, but I think that we can start if you don't mind. So hello, hi, good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to this event organized by Unassyst. Just a few words about our association. It's a no-profit association, the only one recognized by NISE and authorized to represent the professional categories of executive assistant office professionals. I'm Davey, I'm the president. I'm here in Milan, and together with us in Milan, there's also our Segretario Generale. It sounds better in Italian. Irene Cutrona. Hi, Irene. And connected from Palermo, is there Valentina or not yet? I don't.
Not yet, Daddy. She's arriving. She's arriving.
Valentina is arriving. Is in Palermo. Is in the traffic. Is coming home. So I'm so excited and proud to be here because there's a very, very special guest. It's really one of my myths, and I'm so happy to welcome Bonnie Low-Kramen. Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
Hello.
Where are you?
So happy to be here. I am at my house. Welcome to my home office in a place called Ponte Vedra, Florida. It's northeast Florida. We're about 7 miles from the ocean, and it's north. It's quite like 8 hours drive from Miami. So I know most people think about Miami when they think of Florida, but I'm farther north.
Right. So,
but it's nice here.
I think that Bonnie doesn't need any particular introduction, but for the few who don't know her, I would like just to say some few words about her biography. First of all, I would like to say why we decided to invite Bonnie, because she's one of us. She had been personal assistant to the Oscar actress, the Oscar winner actress, Olympia Dukakis, for 25 years. Is it correct? 25 years. I'm not so good at numbers. It's correct. Yes. Then she devoted to the promotion and empowerment of our profession, and she founded the Ultimate Assistant Training and Consulting, and she's still the CEO, organizing courses, webinars, conferences for professional admin all over the world. She's a TEDx speaker. Her speech, The Real Reason People Quit, is well known and very appreciated. And she wrote also a bestseller, Be the Ultimate Assistant, and some articles. One of them was published by the Harvard Business Review, and it was just the reason why we met and we started this cooperation. We had the chance to meet Bonnie in person during our visit in Florida, during the event organized by Jeremy Burroughs. And she gave also the possibility to spend 2 hours of her Saturday morning with her, talking to us, and arranged this interview. Well, and we can say we felt when we met in Orlando, we felt really embraced by her warmth, authenticity, genuinity, passion, and enthusiasm that Bonnie puts in everything she does. And we can find these feelings and these values also in her second book, already published, because I think in February, end of February, the 28th, if I'm not wrong. And which is entitled Stuff Matters, People-Focused Solutions for the Ultimate New Workplace. Here it is, and you can buy it on Amazon, right? And it's a very important book because it's a sort of a tool which can enable to start what Bonnie defines unfiltered conversations with the management, between staff people and the management. I like this definition, unfiltered, because it means that this conversation, this dialogue should be very genuine, sincere, open and transparent. But let's talk about the book later on, because first of all, I would like to remind you that after this interview, there will be 15-20 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to make all your questions, your comments you would like to share, because Bonnie will be very glad to answer to all of your questions. So let's start with this interview with my first question. And I would like you, Bonnie, to go back to your early beginning when you start your career as a personal assistant to Olympia. You wrote that Olympia was an amazing, inspiring leader. She knew very well how to manage people. And this concept of managing people, we can find this concept all inside the book, all over the book. And my question is, how was Olympia's approach so important in defining, creating, and feeding your leadership? In particular, there are two episodes that you told us in Orlando that I enjoyed so much. So if you don't mind, if you would like to share this episode with us.
Sure.
Oh my God. I can talk
about.
I am so happy to be here, and I will tell you the answers to those questions about Olympia for sure, but I need to take a minute just to acknowledge you, Davey, and Irene. You came to Orlando, we had a delicious breakfast together, and it was so powerful that you made the trip from Italy to be together. And that matters. That's what assistants do. You show up to talk about the real things. And just like you're doing today. So first of all, Davey and Irene, I want to thank you for your dedication to this profession, because I can't do this alone. We need to do this thing together. And then I'm looking at my screen and I'm seeing your smiling faces. I'm seeing Olympia. Hello, Olympia. It's fun. I love when I meet another.
Thank you for the invitation. Hi,
Yeah,
Bonnie.
you're welcome.
Hi, Daddy. Hi, Irene.
And Martina.
Hi,
And Carla. I see familiar names. I see friends. I see your smiling faces because you know that there is potential in the power of this group. I know that each of you is powerful individually, but together, that's where the magic happens. And that's what we talked about in Orlando. And that is essentially what you're going to hear from me today. But with that, back to your question. Olympia, she was a theater actress and a director. And if any of you have been involved in theater, you know that theater is the ultimate collaborative endeavor, meaning that an actor is not effective if there is not lighting, costumes, the set, direction from the director. So when I was in my 20s and went to work with Olympia, she would say about me, she would introduce me and say, meet Bonnie. She works with us rather than she works for us. She knew that it was important that I be in the meeting with her. She treated me like a business partner before we were even using that term, business partner. And really, she showed me what it was like to be an assertive, powerful woman in a business very dominated by men. She did not sacrifice her femininity, but she was the one to say the hard thing often. And I got to see with my own eyes what happens to other people when a woman says the thing that everybody else is thinking. And what I saw again and again and again for 25 years were people who they would respond like this. They would go, phew. They would be relieved that Olympia would be the one to say the thing. Now, Davey is referencing a story that I told in Orlando. I was thinking back, the theme in Orlando was about finding your voice and speaking up. And as assistants and as women, we're in a profession that's dominated by females. We love when there are men in this profession, but the reality is that it is dominated 95 to 97% female. And we know that as women, we're not necessarily encouraged to speak up. Well, I told the story that one day early on in my work with Olympia, I was on the phone with a producer, with a man she was going to be working with on her next project. And on this phone call, he was abusive. He was using profanity. He was yelling. He was a bit irrational and interrupting me. You know the type, I'm sure. And I handled it as best I could, but I was pretty shaken up when I got off the phone. And I thought to myself, well, I have to tell Olympia what happened because we're going to be working with this man. It's not like he's out of our life and he's not going to be a factor. So I told her, well, as factually as I could, this happened. And I watched her and I saw her face and she was getting angrier by the second. And in my mind, I was thinking, is she getting mad at me? As we often do as women. And I will never forget, this happened decades ago. I will never forget what she said to me. She said, Bonds, you don't have to take that. You don't have to take that from anybody. Are you going to handle it or am I? Well, in that moment, I said to her, oh, I'll handle it the next time he calls. And if that happens again, in that moment, when she gave me the freedom, the license, the permission to speak my mind, even though she was going to be working with him on this next project, it was so freeing. And that made it safe for me to take action when I needed to, because it wasn't only going to apply to him, it would apply to anyone. And I was shy, somewhat shy in my 20s. But to hear that kind of license from such a powerful woman was very empowering. She would say things to me as an assistant like, Bonnie, I may not always agree with you, and I may not always do what you say, but I always want to know what you think. And that's what the best leaders do. They make it safe for you to say what's on your mind. And the complaint I hear from so many assistants around the world is that your leaders don't know what you do. They have no idea what you're capable of. You feel under-leveraged and underutilized. And the only way they will know how to utilize you is if we figure out how to tell them. Because the other thing that Davey was referencing was in the introduction to my book, I talk about the data point that says that most leaders are out of the average age that a leader gets their very first training in managing people, meaning managing you, is age 46. And that was an aha moment for me. When I found that out, it explained so much. So if the assistants of the world are not feeling well managed, there's a good reason why. There's a severe lack of education on the part of the leaders. And you don't have to be a math major to figure out that most leaders are out of school more than 20 years before they get their first training in managing people. So what do you do in the meantime? What we do in the meantime is that we, the assistants of the world, have to manage our managers. And that means speaking up. You see and hear everything. You all have a front row seat to what's going on in your company, even if it's happening over a webcam, even if you're working virtually or remotely. In 2023, it has never been more important for you to say what you're seeing, because your leaders are somewhat in chaos, and so are HR departments. And you, my friends, are the chaos tamers. You're the ones who calm the chaos. You bring order to the chaos. So there's some really incredible opportunities right now. So Davey, I tried to answer what you asked.
Yes, yes, perfectly, Bonnie, perfectly. Now I would like you, Irene, can you?
Yeah.
answer
Thank
your
you, Bonnie. I think what you just said, it's part of the answer to my question. Because in your book, Staff Matters, Bonnie, the gap issue is recurring. For example, how staff should be managed and how actually it is. The gap between the staff expectations and reality. But what's the reason of this gap? And above all, how can we fill it?
That's a very important question, Irene. Thank you so much. So here's the thing. I do refer to gaps. The gaps in the workplace, what I'm referring to are those areas, those subjects, those departments that need improvement in your company. And in many companies, that means the onboarding system is not very good, or the hiring process, the interviewing for new assistants, the interviewing for new executives, that process would be something that assistants can get involved in. Another example are the assistants who are really great at technology and love Microsoft Office and Teams, and that you actually like to teach others that. And so many assistants are getting involved in IT and the tech. So what I'm referring to are the places that you possess a subject matter expertise, a SME, SME, a subject matter expertise, and that you can then reveal to your leaders and executives what that is, and in essentially showing your value. But here's why it happened. Here's why there are all these gaps in the workplace, and the workplace feels very chaotic and volatile still on the heels of the pandemic. I'm sure many of you remember 9/11, what happened on 9/11, the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, which had ripples all over the world. It didn't, only impact New York City, for sure. So that impacted the workplace terribly. And then a few years later, 2008, there was the financial meltdown on Wall Street, which again threw the workplace globally into turmoil. And then now we have what happened during the pandemic, the last 3 years, which has been hugely disruptive in the workplace. My point is that I track it back really to 9/11, that the humans of our workplace, certainly the assistants, we've had a hard time keeping up with all the changes that have been created in the workplace. And so then what happened was job descriptions, many assistants say the job description that you're doing, what you do every day, bears very little resemblance to the job description you were hired to do. The job has changed. So, and HR departments have been in such chaos, they haven't had the time or the inclination to build new, more reflective job descriptions about what you actually do, paired with better job titles. And of course, we know that job titles and job descriptions automatically connect to the money you make. And many assistants around the world are underpaid. And I think a big contributing factor to all of this is the fact that the profession is dominated by women. We as women tend not to want to make waves. We don't want to make trouble. We just put our assistants of the world tend to put our heads down and just get it done. And you do it, whether you have to take work home at night and on the weekends, you get your job done and you figure it out. You wing it. I hope some of you understand that expression, you know, winging it, that you're just figuring it out. And it's only been in the last 10 years that there's been any real robust training for assistants. So it's a complicated situation, which is why, my friends, this book is 400 pages. It got and 21 chapters. It had to be this long because I was trying to put all the constituencies in here, the leaders, to tell the story of what leaders are going through, what are assistants going through, what are HR going through, what are recruiters going through, because no one of those groups is going to be able to fix what's broken alone. We need to work together better. And so I'm painting a picture for you of chaos might be too strong a word for some of your companies, but it's certainly a different landscape now than it was in February of 2020, and we are never going back. So my concern and the issues I address in Staff Matters is, okay, friends, what do we do now? What do we build now? I believe the status quo, you know, the way it is right now, is not acceptable. There are too many issues that are causing problems. I mean, just look at the whole remote, the big conversation happening about, you know, going back into the office. Do we do that? Do we go half into, you know, a hybrid way, fully remote, all 5 days in the office? It has not been solved yet. And many companies are really wrestling with what to do. And that's just one example of a gap. That's what I mean by the gap. And times of change are times of opportunity. So each and every one of you has an opportunity to be honest with yourself about your talents and skills and the ways in which you want to spend your day. And there are amazing opportunities right now to leverage those talents and skills in the company you're working with right now, perhaps. So my book addresses all of that. What do you think, Irene?
Thank you, Bonnie. I think you're right. We spoke a lot during our breakfast about that. And, you know, it's what you said. Each of us has a situation, many problems in every area of the companies, but maybe the only way to solve it is putting together our problems to get one solution.
Well, certainly collaborating with the team and having a conversation. Really, we have to talk more to each other. And the talking with each other happened more easily when we were physically in an office together. And it is more of a challenge now over webcam, but it's simply a challenge and it's a little messy. Not everyone is as comfortable on webcam as others are.
Right.
So the good news about messy situations is that the assistants of the world happen to be some of the best people to clean up messes. And to truly,
I like that.
truly.
I like that.
Bonnie, I can say that the importance of the networking, not only in your country, but also the international networking can help to have an idea, to discuss and to be supported as well. So I think that is very important. So I think that your book covers all the aspects of our profession. I would like to go deep inside your book. Staff Matters it can be seen as a result of a series of interviews that you did with staff roles, staff members all over the world. And you mentioned 1,500 one-on-one conversation with staff roles. But you entered also the companies. You had interviews, dialogues, and conversation with direct stakeholders such as CEOs and leaders at all levels, HR professionals, recruiters, trainers, journalists, and so on. As Unassyst, we are deeply aware that such conversations are so crucial, so important to create a common culture around our profession. And so crossing these interviews, Bonnie, from one side and the other side, which is the sentiment, the perception around our role, around the staff roles. Did you find out that management recognized our value, or we are still perceived, we are still, I can say, let me say, invisible, or at least undervalued, underestimated?
Or just a cost? Just a cost, because staff, it's a cost.
Right. Or just a cost. Historically, the role was not viewed as contributing to the profits of a company. And we all on this call know that that's not true at all. That if any of you, if each of you saves your executive even 1 hour of time a week by the work you do, by the emails you answer on his or her behalf, on the meeting you sit in on that he or she doesn't have to sit in on, if you save them time, that automatically means you're saving them money. So the next time anybody tries to tell you that you have no connection to the bottom line, that is 100% wrong. So let's start there. The saving of time means you're saving money. I did a lot of interviews, and I want to be very honest with you and tell you that most of the leaders I spoke with appreciated the administrative staff. If they know me, then chances are they were already inclined in that direction. But I would not be telling you the full truth if I didn't experience the other kind of leader. For example, I spoke with an HR director. I spoke with many, but one particular one, when I said, so tell me your point of view on the administrative staff and their future in this workplace. And he said to me, Bonnie, we don't really think about the administrative staff very much. We don't really think about them. And in my head, I'm thinking, you're an idiot. Like, how do you ignore this ginormous, huge group of people? But it was important to hear that that was his point of view. There was another leader who minimized the administrative staff, and why. What I found out is that this CEO, male CEO, earlier in his career had an executive assistant who was not up to the task. I mean, we know in this profession that not everybody is at a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. We know that there are, more skilled assistants than others, more dedicated, more committed assistants. And he had a bad situation happen with an assistant, and that singular situation made him not feel very negatively about the whole profession. And I mean, that seems immature, but that's the reality. My goal was to help them get it, to help them understand the scope of what is possible. So, but here's some good news. I'm speaking in April at a SHRM conference, and I know Irene and Davey, I told you about this when we were together at breakfast, and I'm excited about this. The SHRM, SHRM, stands for the Society of Human Resource Managers, and it is an international organization with 315,000 members. I'm speaking at their conference, the Talent Conference in April, and there's going to be about 1,500 HR people at the conference. And in my session, maybe there will be 500, but that's a lot of HR people that I'm going to be in front of. And the subject that I'm going to be speaking about that I told them I want to talk about is HR taking a fresh look at the administrative staff to fully leverage you, as a golden resource. As you're already on the payroll, my message to this audience of human resource directors is you need to look at the administrative staff as a resource for all kinds of things: onboarding, hiring, disaster planning, technology training, orientations for new executives and new assistants. And they said back to me, they said, yes, we want this session, Bonnie. This is going to be great. We're very excited about it. And then the second thing they told me, we've never done this subject before. We've never dealt with it before. And I'm thinking, wow, it's 2023 and you've never had a session at a SHRM conference about the administrative staff. That strikes me as a little odd, but there it is. So it's not like anything else. It's not black and white. It's not simple. And I know each of you understand that. It's not going to be like a light switch that you turn on and off. This is going to be a process of education, because, the profession of assistants, that's why I wrote the Harvard Business Review article, is executive assistant the right career for you? And I focused on the perception problem. There are people in the workplace who have an old idea about what assistants do. And the only way it's going to change is if we show them, and if we speak up, and if I stand in front of them and talk about this. So.
Yes, as I told you before, it's a change of mindset. It's a change. We have to create a new culture, a common culture, shared culture around this profession. Right. How? Just starting this dialogue with external stakeholders, HR, especially HR inside the companies.
Right. Well, let me just say, Irene and Davey, this organization, Unassyst, you're almost 2 years old. This is a fantastic way to bridge the community, to invite. It's not only about assistance, but I think you have a golden opportunity to invite leaders and educators and HR directors right into your events so that there can be talking to each other in order to fix what's broken.
Yes, we were born 2 years ago, but we know that we have done a lot, but the journey is so long because that
don't lose heart. There's an expression in America that it's a marathon. Do you know the expression? It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Do you know? Yeah, I know.
We gotta go the distance.
I think that it's very important, Bonnie, what you say in the chapter number 5 of your book. The title of this chapter is Giving Voice. And you did it because you gave voice to staff issues, interviewing HR, leaders, admin professional, executive assistant. And there's a sentence in your book that hit me. You write, let me read it. Each member of the staff is a subject matter expert in at least one area. And that means they are valuable to the whole company. So, Bonnie, what's the key? What's the secret to spread this value and to multiply it?
It's going to begin on teams, and the teams of women, it's dominated by females. So in any of your companies, it would begin with a conversation. I mean, if we all were in a workshop in the room together, I'd be asking you, Alessandra, what's the thing that you're great at of a business nature? Like if you asked any assistant, are you great at everything? Are you an expert at everything? No assistant would say, yes, I am. We need to do a much better job of understanding the subject matter expertise of our colleagues. We may know that one of you, Christina, you're a word expert, or you're you're a great proofreader, or you design fantastic PowerPoint decks. But we only know a little piece of what people are capable of. In groups of women, we need to generously share information with each other about what we're each great at so that we can pool those resources and better leverage one another on the project we're doing. And then we can be honest with each other to look clearly, take fresh eyes, to look at the department, to look at the company, what needs fixing, what in the aftermath of the pandemic could be done so much better. If we know that leaders are still at odds, nobody trained them for a workforce that's partially at home and partially in the office. They need your help. HR desperately needs your help. They may not be eager to admit it at first, but your obligation, your responsibility, you work for a company, so your commitment is to the company. And I believe every assistant, it's not only about what you do, the tasks you do every day, but I do believe we have an opportunity, an obligation, a responsibility to say what you see as an area, a gap, an area that needs improvement, and to ask for a meeting. Maybe it's 3 of you who go in and you prepare a 30-minute, 20-minute presentation. This is what we think needs to happen. Sometimes it has to do with restructuring the administrative staff. We're seeing a trend towards creating a new role called chief of staff or director of administration, because the people who are so equipped to bring organization to a chaotic situation are you. The thing is, chapter 4 is called Ask First. And so your leaders are not necessarily asking you what you know and what you think. And I'm here today to encourage you to do it anyway. It doesn't have to be loud or ugly or nasty. No. It needs to be professional, detailed, certainly respectful, but you're working for the company already. I think, what's our choice? Our choice is just to kind of sit in the present with all of these issues. That's not okay with me. And I suspect some of you are parents. My goal with the book is to not only give you ammunition to help to find the words, to have the stories, to make it better for each of you right now in your workplace, but to look ahead to our children, to our daughters, to our sons, to our grandkids who are going to be in the workplace in 10, 15 years, however long. Don't we want it to be better for them? And I would say we do. In that chapter 5, which is the, exploration of each of those roles, I got to ask them questions like, and I would ask these assistants, what is it about your role that you don't think other people know? What are you worried about in your role? What do you wish the rest of the staff would do that they're not doing for you, with you? I ask them what they're excited about. What are they worried about? What do they wish others would know? And wow, did they tell me? And that's why I call it unfiltered conversations with the staff in their words, not my words, their words. And these stories, often many of them come under what I view as a category called You can't make this stuff up.
Wow. How
Yes,
many
you're right,
issue
Bonnie.
you get out. I mean, we have to think, we all have to think a lot about what you just told us.
I think that it's the time for us to do something for ourselves, but especially for the future generation, as you told. But now, of course. And I would like to change the subject, Bonnie, to come to a subject that it's very peculiar, a difficult subject, especially for me, for myself, because in chapter 13, the title of chapter 13 is Money, and you talk about money. I think that talking about money, it's quite a taboo subject, especially in Italy and especially for women. And you talk also in your book, you deal also with the wage gap, and with very peculiar examples as well. We seem not to deserve having a proper compensation according to our experience, skills, and seniority. And I've got two questions I would like to ask to the audience today, just to think about. When is the last time you received a pay increase? It's one question. And the other one is, have you ever negotiated a salary, a compensation? I think that the other word, the other taboo is a negotiation, especially for women. And you in your book, there are also some reasons why it is so difficult to speak about money and negotiation. So there's a sentence I would like to underline. One of your sentences that there's in the book. You don't get what you don't ask for. For me, it's just we have to bring in our mind. It should be carved in stone, scolpito nella pietra, I think, because it's not just it's not useful only for compensation or salary, but also in the relationship. For example, with your husband, your fiancé, your man, you don't have if you don't ask. You have to ask, in my opinion. And so my question is, what should staff do if they feel underpaid? So please give us some practical suggestions to deal with these difficult subjects.
Yes, the subject of money for too long has been forbidden and secret and taboo and like, ooh, no, you can't talk about money. Well, we must, and we as women are getting hurt by not talking about it with each other. I know it's not cool to talk about money with people with other women in your current company, but it certainly is okay to talk about money openly and honestly with women who are not in your company. You know, we need to emulate the guys. Actually, men do this all the time. We as women are not socialized when we're young to negotiate on our behalf. We are socialized with other kinds of messages. And I know in Italy it's partially cultural, but trust me, here in the United States, there's also a good dose of bias. I'm telling you, with all these interviews I did with the book, trust me, it was not a love fest the whole time. There was a man who looked me straight in the eye and he said, wage gap between men and women? What wage gap? You women have it so good. What are you complaining about? That's what he literally said to me. This guy was American. So we have work to do here in the United States. The data is, though, yesterday was Equal Pay Day in the United States. It takes Caucasian women till March 14th of 2023 to make as much as what men did in just 2022. That's 2.5 months longer. And if you're a woman of color, if you're Black, if you're Latina, it takes even longer for you to get to Equal Pay Day. I think Latino women, it's taking till August. It's not okay, because here's the thing. Everybody on this call knows. I mean, I certainly know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck and have to worry about paying your bills. Do I pay that one? Do I pay this one? And economics impact your ability to make decisions about your career. And therefore, I'm of a part of my work is to train women how to negotiate on their behalf. We're generally not taught how to do it. Men are generally taught how to do it. We are not. And therefore, I didn't miraculously know how. Olympia Dukakis, watching her negotiate for 25 years, helped me understand. The thing is, she had an agent and a manager do her negotiation for her. And I would sit there and I would think, who's doing that for me? Nobody was doing that for me other than me. So we as women and men as well, we need to talk more with each other about money. We need to have accurate job descriptions, accurate, detailed, up to the minute job description, because guess what? Job description equals money. If they don't understand what you do, it's harder to negotiate a higher salary if they're just all confused about what is it that you actually do, right? So we need to make it crystal clear. And if there's any group of people who know how to make it crystal clear in a beautifully beautifully formatted document, it's each of you. What it requires is the gumption, the confidence to go into HR to ask for a meeting and to say, I would like to have a pay evaluation. I would like to understand my career path in this company. And I believe in my book, I explore it in a big way. Money is one of the bigger chapters in the book because it's such a hot button and it's such an important issue because it impacts everything. It impacts whether you feel the freedom to speak up, because we tend not to speak up if we're fearful, like, if I speak up, I might lose my job, I might get in trouble, I might be labeled a troublemaker. So women stay quiet. And we can't stay quiet. And I know the chat is going wild. We could spend an hour on money alone. I hope that helps. I want, please read that chapter. But even if you don't buy the book, on Google, if you Google me and Bonnie Low-Kramen, in fact, one of the articles about money I've written is called Taboo No More. And, the truth about money. And I wrote one, The 5 Ways for Women to Make More Money. We need to fix this. We need to solve this. If we don't, the data shows it's going to take 200 years till we get to equity. And I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of time. So not okay with me, because by the time my granddaughters get into the workplace, I want them paid properly. I don't want them bullied. I don't want them sexually harassed. And I certainly want them paid fairly.
There's a comment by Luigi and Gianni in the chat. One of the main issues related to women negotiating salary is the so-called untitled mindset. Untitled mindset, we tend to believe we do not really deserve an increase and we should be grateful for having a job and salary, whatever it is.
And the reality is that our companies are lucky to have you. Yes, it's appropriate to be grateful for a good opportunity, but they need to be grateful to have you doing your job. I mean, if any of you are really honest, you don't have to tell me or anybody, but could they live without you? Could they function well without you? If all of a sudden you weren't there tomorrow, how well would the company run without your involvement? And I think for many of you, that they would be in big trouble. And that's why so many assistants don't get to take vacation, because they can't even it can't be afforded for them to be out. That whole mindset of that women need to be grateful for the opportunity to work, I believe needs to change in 2023. That there needs to be, we call it a partnership. Well, a partnership is equal, and that means equitable. Doesn't mean you're going to make the same money as your executive, but it does mean making money that is commensurate with your level of responsibility.
Bonnie,
That's what I think about that.
with this issue, our chat is getting hot. Luija says that we are not trained nor educated to bring attention to our achievements, as we don't want to be seen as arrogant, or sometimes because we are not self-aware of the contribution we bring to the table. And another issue coming out of the chat is HR. There is a problem with HR understanding this issue and the value of some roles inside the company.
And the irony would be if people in HR are women. That would be very interesting. But Luija, that's a great point you're making about we have been socialized as women to not toot our own horns, to not, it's seen as bragging, and it's seen as negative if we tout our own achievements. And that's why in those articles I've written, my suggestion to you is to keep it factual. There is nothing emotional about this. This is business. Each and every one of you is the CEO of You Incorporated. You are a business. The supermarket doesn't, the food store doesn't care that you love your job. The food store wants money for what you buy. And therefore, you need to be paid a salary that is equivalent to the role that you play. And in creating a document, it just needs to be fact-based about exactly what you do, for whom do you do it, how much time does it take to do it. And in meetings, when Luija, you do something, you've worked very hard on a project, then Christina gets to say, you know, before we begin the meeting, I just want to say that Luija, you did a great job on that project. And we're all very grateful to you because you saved us all so much time, blah, 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 you know, to keep it genuine. But we as women, we as men and women can be each other's wing people. You know, like it is powerful for me to talk about Irene and Davey's achievements. It's somehow more powerful than them talking about it. You know what I mean? We need to do that for each other. We need to elevate each other in an authentic way. And that's something that women don't have a lot of practice doing, but I'm here to say that we need to begin.
Bonnie, I'm feeling you very passionate, and I'm going to touch another issue I'm sure will get you more passionate if it's possible. So even today, too often it still happens to face problems with toxic work environments and workplaces, sexual harassment, abuse of power, disrespect. So how can we build an healthy workplace? I mean, we are living a post-pandemic era, but we are ready for the next crisis in our workplaces.
So toxic work environments include bullying, sexual harassment, unfair rules that are applied differently for one group versus another. There's all kinds of conversation going on right now about why are some people allowed to work at home and other people aren't allowed to work at home. And it's very volatile right now. Here's the thing. Let's just use workplace bullying as an example. You know, assistants for being intimidated, having abusive language. You know, in my book, I tell a story about how an assistant was in a meeting in a conference room with many people, and her executive came up behind her and did this. Did you leave your brain at home today? In front of everybody, and humiliated her. We know that, so that event that happened, it took 10 seconds to happen, but the trauma of it stays, doesn't it? And when I ask rooms of assistants, does the trauma of that bullying event, that sexual harassment event, does it just last the day it happens, or the week it happens, or the month it happens? No, they yell back at me. It lasts for years. It lasts forever. Forever? That cannot be okay with anybody. And that is reason enough that we have to take action. My urging to everyone on a staff is that we need to do a better job up front before we even accept a job at a company to understand the culture of that company, to read the careers tab on the website, to look at the images. If you go to a website, and I was on one this morning, actually, and the leadership of the company were all men and no person of color in there. That tells me they're not friendly towards women or other people who don't look like them. And that would make me think, I don't want to apply there if I was thinking about applying there. I think we need to do a better job vetting companies, hiring managers. You're sitting at an interview and you can talk about culture and say, you know, what I've come to understand about my work style is that I succeed the best when I'm in an environment of respect and that we work as a team. Can you tell me about the culture here? What kind of culture is there at this company? That each of you has a right to ask these kinds of questions. It's kind of, I wrote an article recently called, "It's important to date before you get married." You know what I mean? Like, it's important to have a few interviews and talk with them about what's the environment like. Go in, spend a few hours to test it out, to kind of hear how people talk to each other. I know that your emotional intelligence is very high. You're able to tell a lot when you're in person. It is not possible to tell everything you need to know about a work environment from a Zoom meeting. You might be tempted to say yes if they're offering you the job. I'm saying slow it down so that you really are making an informed decision about new work. So there's a lot to say about toxic work environments. I have a chapter called Respect, and then the following chapter is called Disrespect. And there's far too much of it happening in the workplace, in the global workplace today. And each of you has a right to be in a culture of respect. Bullying has no place in any workplace, not in Italy, not in America, not in South Africa. I know it exists,
No.
but it shouldn't be there. It's not smart for leaders to tolerate those behaviors, because you got to know that if you're being traumatized by these behaviors and you're feeling sad and depressed and angry, resentful, all of those feelings, can you do great work when you're feeling any of those feelings? I would think
Bonnie,
most.
Actually, usually you understand that when you are senior, when you are younger, you start to work, it's much more difficult to give voice to your rights, no? So when you understand it, maybe it's too late because you already you were through that stuff. So
Well,
it's very
Davey,
important to speak also to young generation.
That's right. That's the purpose of Unassyst. You're going to be getting the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, 40, 50. That's the purpose of coming together in forums like this. So your 20-somethings can hear this conversation and they can think, look at all these people talking about this, and cut them to the chase. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you're absolutely right. I talk with too many assistants who are in their 50s and say, oh, I finally stood up for myself. That's awesome. I don't want it to take women or men until they're in their 50s. I want it to happen way earlier. I don't want people to be bullied for 3 years. I think 3 weeks is quite enough. You know what I mean? I want it to speed up. And that's why I say yes to groups like Unassyst, who want to bring women and men in a room together to have an honest conversation about what's really going on and what's poisoning companies from the inside out. That's the way to get to young women and men, is get them in rooms like the one we're in right now. And who knows, they may be here right this minute and think either, who is this crazy American, or, you know what, she's actually making a lot of sense.
There's Luija who would like to say something, right, Luija?
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bonnie, it's a great conversation, and I do agree with you about raising awareness. bringing people together, but also we're talking about raising awareness in the young generations. So my idea would be to really to make a summary of your book and promoting in the universities and in the
Yes.
school, because we, as Irene was saying before, at our age, we're very young anyway, but still we have already gone through a lot.
Yes.
And this is what makes us aware. But how can we, and we went through so much pain because we didn't recognize the many different forms of micro-violence, invisible violence we were subject to. We had to suffer for that. So now, for me, the idea of bringing to the attention of young women and young men as well, the topics you speak about very clearly in your book, especially the fact that the respect is not negotiable, but also raising awareness about the small and forms of violence, like the one I wrote in the chapter, the mansplaining, the mentorruption, the bro appropriation, the gaslighting, all these things that young women and men cannot identify. Let's start from them. Let's transfer through our power and knowledge and the networking we are building. Let's bring those things and those knowledge and this knowledge to the youth, because this is where we can build a lot. And I really ask your permission to share the core principles of your book with them.
Do it. Yes. I mean, Luigia, you showed me you have my book you're going to see, and if you permit me, at the very front of the book, I dedicate the book to my grandkids and the staff of the future. But the very next page is a special message to business students and future leaders, because I want this book carried at business schools and universities. I agree with you. We need to get to young men and women. And it's very short. Let me read this to you. That I say, you will eventually have a staff to manage. When that happens, I want you to be as ready as you can be, equipped with information that will matter on a daily basis. Know this, your success will depend directly on the success of your staff. No one gets there alone. No one. Leading others requires moral courage and hard work. The best leaders rely and lean on their staffs. Every page you are about to read will support you to do exactly that. Welcome to Staff Matters. And then when they read the table of contents and they see that chapter 16 is called Sex, which is about a full exploration about what it means what's the difference. It's about gender in the workplace. It's about the difference between experiencing the workplace as a woman versus a man. It's very heavily researched, which is why it's 423 pages. And I interviewed psychologists and business school professors in the search for the why. Why is it the way it is right now? But I'm with you. And when I was in my 20s, I was sexually harassed and I was bullied and I didn't know what the hell to do about it. And that's not okay. That's not okay.
Now you all know, because we fell in love with Bonnie.
If that happens to my granddaughter, they're going to have to lock me up. I'm going to murder somebody. If some of the things you've told me have happened to you, happen to them, I mean, wouldn't you just be ready to kill if that happened to your grandkid?
Yeah, right. So I think that's maybe there are other questions. If you would like to ask someone to Bonnie, because the time is running very fast,
We can stall 5 minutes more, because Bonnie, we would like to speak to you without any time, but we know that's not possible. So if someone wants to ask something, please do it.
Yeah, you're
Don't
welcome.
be shy.
You are welcome. I promise to not yell at you. I might yell at the problem. Who's got something?
Yeah, Carla and Sonia.
Talk to me.
Hi, Bonnie. How are you?
I am good.
Thank you. I got your book and I'm I'm almost done with it. Actually, I'm on page 367. My Kindle says that I've read the 81% of your book. I'm sorry I couldn't finish by tonight, but you know,
what's on your mind, Carla, who I know, you and I know each other for many years. What are you thinking?
Larger than life. Really impressive. I love every chapter. And what I like to point out right now, Bonnie, is that your book is not only for staff. Mainly, it has to be read by managers. I think that is an innovative point of view, you know, starting from the bottom up. You know, it's the new way our leadership should go. This is my personal opinion. And besides being distributed among school and scholar and young people, as you mentioned before, should be given to managers, so they can learn how to manage stuff.
Agreed, Carla.
So this is very important. I don't want to shift the focus from assistant to anyone else, because you said staff. So you're not including only assistant, but you mean generally being staff. So this is a new way of leadership that you are proposing. It's a more human leadership. Because I remember clearly well that the first chapter, you quote a very important book, a book that I love very much, is Atticus Finch in Kill a Mockingbird, that said, put yourself in someone else's shoes. And this is very important for our managers, for our CEO, to start to think what staff thinks. So thank you very much for every word that you have written on this book, Bonnie. Thank you very much. I love it very much, and I promise I will finish soon, and I would write you my feedback. Thank you.
I write a review on Amazon, any of you. But you know what I hope most of all is that the book gives you the words so that you might consider buying a few copies and giving them as gifts to leaders and HR and recruiters. The people, I mean, I really pray you know that this is much more than about book sales. Yeah. This is about making the changes that need to happen in the workplace. And Carla, you're right. Like, I can't assume that leaders are going to read my book. So if they're not, I mean, I hope they do. But if they're not, you are. And you can hand walk it in and say, I read this and I'd like to talk about chapter whatever. Because you have now the ammunition. Honestly, I've got a lot of books behind me in my bookshelf, and I didn't see the book that talked about assistants, HR, and recruiters as part of the very key staff who are running things. You know, in the back of the book, you're called the backbone of the company, the right arms to your managers, you're the eyes, you're the ears, you're the lifeblood. My God, how many body parts can you all be? Right? And if you're that important, why then are you being underpaid and often abused and demeaned and diminished and bullied and sexually harassed? It is not logical, and it is not smart leadership, and it's happening because we are, in part, because we're not speaking up and saying factually what we need to be successful. And what we need to be successful is accountability for what's going on in our companies. And you can have a voice in that. I want you to have a voice. And I'm seeing it happening around the world.
And if I may have a suggestion, an advice to my colleague here, probably I mentioned to you, Bonnie, when we were in London, I took your article, the one you wrote on HBR. Yeah. And yeah, a couple of years ago, last year, I don't remember. So by the way, you were mentioning the right salary for an assistant. So I took your article and I brought it to our CFO and I discussed it with it. And as you said in your book, it's money, it's business. So I negotiate because it's business. I said, I do that. And this is a famous speaker, a famous expert on executive assistant, writer on a very important magazine. So this is what is written here. This is what the salary should be. I'm doing that. So, and the man woke up and he said, "Oh, you really?" And I said, "I did." So, as you said, it's business. It has to be a win-win negotiation. Otherwise, you're not going to make it because you're talking about money. And what I suggest to my colleague, to my friend, is to use this article, to use evidence, and go speak to your CFO and then to your boss. And I succeeded because I got a promotion and rise of salary. So this is a successful story.
Thank
for you, Bonnie.
Carla. Good. You woke them up. Yay. And Olympia commented in the chat just now that you need a proactive attitude. You've heard that expression. You have to make the case about what's in it for them if they listen to you. What's in it for them if they hear you about the revolving door of staff in marketing of people who this guy is chasing away because he's sexually harassing every woman who walks through the door. You know, leaders, CEOs have said to my face, and this is in the book, Bonnie, if no one is saying that there's a problem, I think there is none. And on one hand, you can't blame them. If they're not being told, nobody likes to be the messenger, but we need to be. I hope you will find things of value in the Harvard Business Review article. Talk to Carla. Carla and I know each other a long time. Martina knows me very well. I mean, and certainly so do Irene and Davey. I want these messages to be useful and helpful to you in your everyday work.
Bonnie,
and of course,
if you still have 5 minutes, I would like to hear Sonia and then Christina. And if any other one has some questions, you can write us. And if Bonnie agrees, we can send her and have back her answers.
Reply.
Sonia?
Okay, hi Bonnie, I'm here. I've got a question that can be defined as an hardcore question, and this is directed to you about job title, because we have spoken about staff matters and culture and awareness. I have been working for about 26 years. I have been a secretary last century, and now I am an executive assistant, and I have been also an office manager. I'm aware that my awareness of my profile has grown up along with hard skill and soft skill. But do you really think it's possible to find a proper and ultimate definition of or an accurate job title for all the aspects we have as executive assistants? I know that there is a little question, it's an hardcore question, but what do you think about job title?
I think that they're all over the place, that there are 162 job titles. So if you've got a pen and a paper, you want to write down globalskillsmatrix.com, globalskillsmatrix.com, that a group of assistants and former assistants came together to create that document. Lucy Brazier, who many of you must know that name, is part of that group. I contributed to that document as well. It's about a new framework, an organized framework for the administrative staff in levels. Sonia, I do think that there are new, just like in HR, you hear it's Chief People Officer. HR is changing their titles, so can assistants in response to the level of responsibility. Many organizations are taking away the word assistant because there's a policy that says if the word assistant is in your title, that you can only get paid so much. So many assistants know that that's like a thing at certain companies. So they're coming up with new titles like administrative manager, executive project manager. I mean, I'm not having them at the tip of my brain right now, but in chapter 5, they exist. To take away the word assistant and administrative lead, Many assistants, if you manage others, they're creating chief of staff or director of administration. Business partner is another one. So it really is about having a conversation, looking at what exists at your company. Many of the structures that exist right this minute in companies are left over from 9/11 years or the financial 2008 years, and they haven't been revamped to be responsive to today. Does that make sense to you, Sonia?
It does make sense, but I don't know. I fear it will be quite difficult. Just in a very quick example about business partner. From my point of view, this is just a personal point of view. It doesn't embrace all the aspects that we cover.
Right. One of my colleagues in New York said, you know, when you say the words pediatric cardiologist, you know exactly what that person does,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
I thought that's so perfect. Like, that's a perfect example. So is there something that we haven't created yet that, you know, my own mother was a secretary. Her picture is in my book. Her title was secretary. That's not being used hardly anymore. Executive assistant is being used a lot of places, but it's not, in many companies, it's not reflective of what you really do. It's certainly not reflective if you supervise people, if you have people under you, either as a dotted line or a regular line. We need to do better, Sonia. And I hope it doesn't mean you have to leave your company in order to do that, but titles matter. Some assistants say, oh no, whatever you call me is fine. I don't care what anybody calls me. Well, sorry, titles absolutely impact the way people respect the role and how you're being paid. So I think we do need to care about titles. And I think 2023 is kind of a perfect time to begin the conversation about restructure. And I would urge you to check out globalskillsmatrix.com as a tool, another tool to have the conversation with HR, because HR is going to hear this idea and they're going to go, oh my God, you're talking about it, so much work. Yeah, it is time for restructuring of the administrative staff and for titles that actually have some semblance of relationship to the work you're doing. And, you know, offline, if you want to send me your actual job description, Sonia, we could brainstorm some suggested titles. Because during the pandemic, you know, that great resignation we lived through, and companies were like struggling to hold on to what they called high producers. Many assistants said, well, you know, I'm willing to stay, but I want a new title. And they made a new title. But now titles are all over the place and very confused. So I think we can put order to the chaos. So if you want to reach me offline, Bonnie at BonnieLow-Kramen.com, Sonia, you're welcome to.
Thank you very much.
Christina, yours is the last question, and then we go to have dinner.
Thank you. Hello, Bonnie. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I thank you for tonight. I loved it, and I am so glad that we're finally talking about the tough topics. So what I wanted to ask you is this. I was thinking about the last thing you were talking about, the toxic environment, and I'm a trainer, and I just started a small class of 7 students, and I have a chat with each of them before starting class, and 4 out of 7 are in a very toxic environment at work. And so it's not, you know, big numbers to analyze, but still it really got me thinking. And so I wanted to thank you also because the word I think I get from tonight is together. And it's beautiful because it's also the word I usually think about when I think about Unassyst. So it's nice that this really came tonight out, the word together. What I I thought after a chat with one of the students, I called my consultant that works with me, and I said, I cannot just speak to assistants. This is not going to work on the long run, you know, and this is exactly what you said. We cannot have conversations just with assistants. So what I wanted to ask you is, one of these junior executive assistants, she told me she is bullied at work, and one of the executives in the workplace told her, everybody knows being an assistant is a temporary job. No one does it for life, you know? And of course, the comment had the purpose to demean the job. And if I think about your article, you talk about how some movies contribute to wrong notions, you know, about the role. And I think this is also something we often see in the movies, that at the end of the movie, the assistant gets a new role as a great achievement, right? Becomes a manager or something else. So what would you answer to a comment like the one that this assistant received?
To say, excuse me, I love my work as an executive assistant. I provide great value to my executives and my peers, and I love my career. It is not a job. It is my career, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you very much. I would just go womp, because the world is populated by assistants who love working as an assistant. They want to stay in this profession, and they've stayed in spite of some really poor treatment. So that's what I would say to you. And Christina, I love that you're training these women. I would, again, you'll take this for what I'm saying. I urge you to have them all read the Harvard Business Review article. I urge you to have them all read Staff Matters and read the chapter on sex and read the chapter on respect and disrespect, because that will help everybody understand what they can do about these situations they're in. I talk with bullied assistants all the time, and it's appropriate to positively confront and say one-on-one, to say, no one speaks to me like that. What happened in the meeting yesterday, that's the last time. You and I need to work well together, and we need a different way to communicate, because that's not working.
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
I already thought about giving your book at the end of the course. So yes.
I wouldn't give it at the end. Honestly, Christina, I'd give it at the beginning. I'd make it required reading. At Be the Ultimate Assistant, we have assignments ahead of time. And that's what I would recommend. Again, if you want to reach me offline, Bonnie Low-Kramen.com, I can help you with that. But these women, these people who are being bullied, the longer it goes on, the more trauma that's happening. And assistants say to me, Bonnie, I'm afraid to speak up. I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. And I say back to them, if you keep staying quiet about this, I'm afraid you're going to lose you.
Yeah, not your job, but yourself. It's even worse, I think.
Even worse, yeah. And there's too much of this going on. I do term it a global epidemic. It's not okay. I know you hear the frustration in my voice, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions in the chat, but maybe Irene and Davey will invite me back, and we can, in the meantime, you're welcome. I hope you'll get the book. I want you to have the answers you're seeking. And for too long, women have felt isolated in these issues about money, about bullying, and that's not okay with me. So that's why I wrote it.
Yes,
thank you, Bonnie. Really, thank you very much.
We have just arrived at the end of our conversation, our interview, and I would like to say thank you, Bonnie, for your inspiring insights, and thank you to everybody for joining today, for the contributions you hold to this discussion. And I would like to just conclude tonight. That's what the message you sent is quite positive, because in the whole in your book, this message, it's the time, it's a new time for finding together new solutions.
That's
so
it.
when we have the duty to create this new ultimate new workplace for us and for the generation that will come after us, and how we can do just taking the risk of having this discussion to share what bothers us, what we are worried about, what we expect. And so there's a motto. This reminds me of our motto, Unassyst motto, that's to say, build up your future together. So this is my last.
I want to come to Milan, Davey. I want to come to Milan. Bring me to Milan. I have to get on my next call. Link in with me. Anybody who's not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. Be in touch with me. Let me know. I really do want to hear from you. I want this thing to get better. So thank you
Bonnie,
for this opportunity.
Our next goal 2024, Bonnie live in Milan.
Italy.
Hey, I want to come. I want to come. All right. I love seeing your faces. We can do this. We really can do this. Mwah. Sending you all big hugs. Help me make this book with leaders at universities. Help me do this. And those of you who need help speaking up for yourself, talk to Carla. I'm putting her on the spot. I know she'll talk with you. Okay.
You know, Bonnie, this book will be, I make a gift to my HR. I will
Good.
give them the book to read.
All right. I gotta go. Mwah.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Ciao, Bonnie. Bye.
Bye, Bonnie. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.